just to
So
kind of
chapter,
summarize so we don't appear to be starting
Yeah.
out in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
We were discussing paragraph 207. I'll quickly read it again,
Okay. Okay.
and then we can make our comments and then proceed from there. The Earth Charter asked us to leave behind a period of self-destruction and make a new start. But we have not as yet developed a universal awareness needed to achieve this. Here, I would echo that courageous challenge. As never before in history, common destiny beckons us to seek a new beginning. Let ours be a time remembered for the awakening of a new reverence for life, a firm resolve to achieve sustainability, the quickening of the struggle for justice and peace, and the joyful celebration of life.
wow.
That last paragraph is really good.
Uh-huh.
If we could achieve that part.
And
Yep, the last sentence, yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. Isn't that?
I mean, it's very,
Yeah.
very timely, but I mean, this was written when?
2013,
Wow.
Yeah, and it's perfect
15,
for right
15,
now.
2015.
Yeah, 6 years ago, justice, peace, and a joyful celebration of life. We are so far away from that.
Yeah. I know. That's why it really caught my eye when I was reading it. I said, "Oh, that would be good." You know.
Yeah,
Part of it. The last paragraph.
yeah. In in some ways, it's partly hard for us to gauge. I mean, various parts of the world are, in various places
Yeah.
in relationship to that.
Mhm.
I think the sad fact is the United States is among the most backward
Mm.
in all of those areas,
Mhm.
especially since, he begins in paragraphs 203 and 204 with really a critique of what
Are buying.
Yeah. The
yeah,
consumerism. Consumerism.
um,
Yeah.
I guess you could call it a critique of the spirituality of the world economy.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really striking about the economics of the world economy is that America is the center of the world economy or the world capitalist. It's not even really necessarily the world capitalist economy, but America is defines what is current. American cultural values have penetrated the world. So I was thinking, earlier when, after after 9/11 and the first, major wave of sort of anti-American sentiment in the Islamic world really emerged strongly. That George W. Bush responded that the basic cause of the conflict was that they envied our values. And, the basic fact is that was completely missing the point. They completely rejected our values, and for good reason.
Yeah.
The problem is that they didn't have any better values to replace them with. But nevertheless, American values and American culture, which were seen as, undermining the 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 Islamic world and
Yeah.
undermining everything that was good about the Islamic world, was seen as being profoundly negative, and that wasn't unjustified because
Mhm.
American cultural values, in fact, have undermined much of the world, or recast the world in the image of America. which is not a very good image.
Nope.
And they hit us with what we use with the type of freedom, if you want to call it freedom, to be able to fly anywhere we want, whenever we want. I mean, what they hit them with those, they hit us with our own weapons,
Yeah,
our own
that's true. Yeah,
pridefulness or whatever.
yeah, that's true. He talks about, in a lot of ways, those first two chapters, first two paragraphs define kind of a spirituality of the uh, of the material economy. I guess that's a good thing to call it.
Yeah.
You know,
Which
so
is America. Yeah.
it's a spirituality where people are owned by the things they possess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
People are themselves fundamentally empty and devoid of spirituality. And so they seek spirituality predominantly in the wrong things. They seek spirituality in things. So the more you possess, the more spiritual you are. But also seek spiritual, and he doesn't mention this. He mentioned this in the last chapter. You seek spirituality, or you seek meaning in drugs, and seek meaning in alcohol.
Yeah.
And then he also mentions at the end of paragraph 204, you seek it in violence.
Yeah.
And so all of those things are, and in selfishness, all of those things are a hallmark of our society.
Mhm.
We, it's striking the degree to which ours is a culture based on selfishness. That selfishness, is extensive, and in many ways, one can probably find greater selfishness within the church, particularly the evangelical church, than outside of it. The accumulation of stuff.
Yeah, the last sentence in the 204 is obsession with consumerism lifestyle. Above all, when a few people are capable of maintaining it, it can lead to violence and mutual destruction.
Right.
So, what that's happening, nowadays, there's so much violence.
Mm-hmm. Right. And given that violence fuels violence, given that, the sort of American myth, there's kind of like this, sort of Western frontier mentality that, I'm an individual and
Yeah.
I have to protect myself and I have the right to protect myself. And therefore I need a gun. And then once we proliferate guns, everybody can kill one another, which is exactly what is frequently happening.
Yeah. That's really, really sad
Um,
that people can die for it.
yeah, people do die for it. There was another shooting today in Boulder, Colorado.
I know, I was looking at the news. Yeah.
Yeah,
6 people.
We don't know how many people died yet.
6.
Six.
oh, they
There's
announced
a
it?
policeman.
Yeah, 1 police officer and 5 individuals,
Yeah,
5 customers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do they have the shooter?
Yeah, they took him away, walking away, but his one leg was covered in blood because he was hit. But he
The police, probably the police shot him. Yeah.
they walked him to the police car. Yeah.
And what in the world is the
Well,
reasoning for doing that?
at least they didn't take him out to breakfast.
Yeah.
Do you remember Dylan Roof?
Yeah.
Put him in an ambulance. So
Yeah, Dylan Roof was a person who, shot killed those people at the at the African Episcopal Methodist Church
Yeah.
in somewhere in the South. And then when he was arrested, he said he was hungry, so the police took him out to breakfast.
Oh, jeez.
It's, really condoning
Yeah.
I
And
don't,
a
I don't remember that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yes.
it was shocking that they would
That's
do
terrible.
that.
yeah.
But he had only murdered some black people in a church, so that's not, really a terrible crime. It's just,
Terrible.
and the poor guy was hungry, so
Yeah. So he was asking for food and nobody gave him food, so he shot everybody.
no, he went into the church planning to kill them.
Oh.
I mean, he was a white racist, and
Yeah.
They
he
felt
thought,
sorry for him, so they took him out for breakfast to feed
So
him.
what about this Asian women that got killed? You know, I think that's a hate crime.
Yeah,
yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
it is. We
they,
have,
they're saying it's not a hate crime, you know.
But
When
it is. But it
it is,
is.
but the news say, oh, it's not a hate crime.
yeah, it is, and also, I mean, he also is a Christian. I forget exactly what he said, but the implication is that he found uh, the massage parlors sexually too tempting, and therefore wanted
Oh, the
to,
guy that shot all those people. Yeah.
yeah, which is, I mean, which is kind of a Jack the Ripper mentality, that
Yeah, yeah,
although it's not known who Jack the Ripper was,
yeah.
the the major explanation is that he was someone who was um, tempted by the prostitutes of the West End and
Oh,
decided to act, to
yeah.
eliminate his temptation by murdering them.
No kidding.
So that's
Wow.
so this is, sort of
Yeah,
sounds like the same kind of thing, and it's
yeah,
very, very sick.
yeah. My sick in the head. Yeah. Ugh.
And a lot of these things are going to be not just hate crimes. They're going to be quote unquote COVID problems.
Yeah. People is
They're going
going
to
crazy.
blame it on COVID.
Yeah.
Anything they can do, they're going to blame on COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's a reaction from COVID. Wow.
yeah.
Anything.
But in the current environment, unfortunately, hate crimes are they're becoming more common, and they're becoming much more acceptable.
I know. That's terrible.
Used to be it's behind the scene when they do that,
Yeah,
but now it's exposed.
no, yeah. I mean, yeah. The I started reading, or last night I was looking at the introduction to the book that I'm planning to use for the class on racism,
Yeah.
and it talks about how racism made the transition from, sort of explicit racism, calling people by whatever, like,
By name.
using the
Yeah.
N word to describe African Americans, to, sort of moving to a more subtle version of it, where you focus on the the privileges the of the privileged, and especially of white
Yeah.
people, and contrast those with the absence of privilege of others and blame them for their lack of privilege.
Oh,
Right. So that's a much more subtle approach. But now we've moved back to, it's okay to call people whatever you want.
yeah.
It's cancel culture deprives you of the right to do that. The expectation that, you should treat people with dignity is cancel culture. You should be able to call people exactly not what you'd like to, but in that perverted view is they really are.
Mhm.
And, and so we're back really to where we've been. We're back to where we were,
Before.
like over a century ago.
Yeah.
Although the important thing is that that's not necessarily true of everywhere else.
Mm.
He also talks about, the younger generations and the fact that they recognize the shallowness of, um, the economic culture, but often feel unable to break out of it. And so for that, he emphasizes education very strongly. Then he also emphasizes consumer movements like boycott movements,
Mhm.
which at times have been effective.
Yeah. Instead of progressing, we're going backward. You know. I mean, this time we should be far off from being, racial prejudice or something, because we have a lot of education. In fact, all the offices that I worked on have, classes for that. You have to take
Yeah,
it once a year. You know, it's a mandatory class. You have to take it once a
right,
year,
right.
and for all the education that we have, you can assume that majority of the people learn, but I guess not.
Although, I mean, under Trump, there was also the movement to declare those diversity classes un-American,
Oh, I know. Yeah,
and to declare, like this class that I'm going to be teaching on racism, that would be un-American.
yeah. So he wants to eliminate all of that mandatory. Yeah. See? Hmm.
Yeah. So education,
Educating for the covenant between humanity and environment.
Mhm.
What is that entails? Translate. Man, that was.
well, he says that we need to. So environmental education, used to focus on, scientific information.
Yeah,
Um, so sea levels are rising and there's a scientific reason for it. The climate is warming. There's a scientific explanation for that. And the implications, the consequences of that are going to be disastrous. And so there's an assumption that if we know the scientific facts, we'll act accordingly. But he points out that that's not enough, and that we have to move from providing scientific information, although that continues to be important, but that we need to debunk myths of modernity grounded in a utilitarian mindset. So, and So in many ways, the basic fact is that although, I mean, some people are going to be moved simply by a recognition of the crisis, right? But most people are not going to be moved by merely a recognition of the crisis, because the kind of that sort of mindset that really is produced, both has helped to shape our world and also is produced by it, is very strong, and so quite literally, huge numbers of people are owned by their possessions.
Mhm, mhm.
When your possessions own you, you're a slave.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, I mean, if your car, I mean, it seems ridiculous, like that somebody could be owned by their car, right?
Yeah.
But people are.
Mhm.
People are owned by their car, people are owned by their lawns, people are owned by their houses, people are owned by their clothes. And when you're owned by your car or your house or your clothes,
And their status.
you're owned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it owns you, it controls you. That defines who you are.
yeah.
And the sad thing is, you lose your humanity. I mean, there are two sad things. You lose your humanity, you lose your freedom, and the even bigger tragedy is that you think you're fully human in comparison to, you think you're more human than everybody else because you have a better lawn or a better car or a
Yeah.
better house, and you think you're completely free,
Yeah.
when the reality is
People should
you've even lost your humanity.
be pathetic.
It's
Yeah,
it's it's
and it can be a millstone around your neck,
it is.
and they don't realize it.
When the point of life seems to be, to acquire and to be secure, then, I mean, it's hard to break out of that.
Well, there's a difference between being secure and being extravagant.
Mm.
Yeah, although, I think that they tend to be
They think they're secure because of their
closely linked, right? They think they're secure.
yeah.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
they,
the reality is nobody is secure, because we can all die, each any of us.
we're not taking any of that with us.
We're not taking any of it with us. And tomorrow is not guaranteed anyone. Prosperity theology is kind of like, the really good. Well, also in the behavior of some Christians during the pandemic, with prosperity theology, the relationship between us and God is reversed, right? God is transcendent. God is to be revered. God is other. God is not us, right? God is the creator and the provider of all good things. And then in prosperity theology, that's reversed. God is supposed to give us.
Yeah.
God isn't transcendent. God's responsibility is to provide us good stuff, right? But where does that come from? And then, with the pandemic, the I have a right to go to church. I don't have to wear a mask because if God takes me, he takes me.
Yeah.
What about everybody else? Do you want them to go with you? I mean, it's like, this
No,
focus on what I'm entitled to do. And that's exactly what he's what the Holy Father is talking about, that there's and if we look at, although, I don't want to kind of go off on our separated brethren too much, but, if we look at Protestantism, the very essence of Protestantism is that kind of individualism.
Yeah.
It's that we're each an individual before God. And that's ridiculous.
There's no, it's hard to change. I mean, people get their ways already from, from the birth, and the parents teaching some of those things, some of the values. So when they grew up, they pick up more along the way, as as they grow up and mingle with people. So it's, I don't know. Some of them are become a habit. They can't change, even though it's
They don't
important.
understand dignity of
Yeah,
another human
yeah,
being. They don't
exactly.
understand what that means.
And sometimes they forget all the what their parents taught them. You know. So
But I
Yeah,
think this last 20, 25 years, 30 years, there was such a push on education. Now that everybody's got their letters behind their name, they think that they're right and everybody else is wrong. It's like, I
yeah,
don't know if education helps any when it's thought of in that respect.
yeah. It's also, I mean, yeah, education education has also changed. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that I mean, when I was going to college, the important thing was learning, right?
Right.
uh-huh.
You were supposed to
Learning
learn
how to think,
what
right?
you like, learning how to think.
Yeah.
Now you're learning how to do something, like you go to business school and learn how to make money.
Money.
And all of the kinds of things that you would the sorts of classes that you took to
Yeah,
learn how to think are being de-emphasized in favor of the it's almost vocational classes at a higher level. So you
well,
you go to school and focus on pre-law so that you can go to law school and
right.
become a lawyer. You focus on these kind of applied things, and you don't learn how to think.
Yeah. And what gets me, the parents provide for their school.
That's another thing.
Yeah, so it's easy for them. I was talking to Greg the other day, and he said they don't know how, because their kids is almost graduating. One of the kids,
Yeah,
and he said, but they provide it. Everything is
I'm
provided to
guilty of
them.
that.
So I know we were talking, and I said I work hard. I send my school, myself to school, and Greg and Moon just said the same thing. He said, oh yeah, when I was grow, I went to school and I worked and I paid my tuition, I bought my books and stuff like that. But this generation, everything is provided, you know. So it's they got used to that. So I want to have this, I want to have that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. When I went to, I took the bus to school,
yeah, because you don't have a car. Yeah,
and Ann Arbor was about 550 miles away. So it was a long bus trip. And so I arrived with one suitcase and my typewriter. And, so I went to my dorm room, and, there are these kids. First of all, they're coming with their parents,
yeah,
which I thought was, pretty bizarre,
yeah,
since, I mean, I mean, my mother wouldn't go with me, and I wouldn't go with my mother. It's like, once you go off to college, you're
yeah.
now,
You're
an
on your
adult,
own.
and you're on your own, and goodbye,
Yeah,
too
yeah,
bad.
yeah,
I'd like to help you, but there's
yeah,
no money for that, so
yeah,
off you go. And then they're bringing in their stereos and television sets, right? And And I mean, in my hometown, most people still had black and white television sets,
Right.
one per family, right?
Yeah.
And here are these kids stereos, television sets, like how can a kid even own this stuff? I mean, I was just shocked. And, they're setting up their rooms and they have
Yeah.
all of this stuff. And this is really insane. I mean, it's like, what are these people doing?
Yeah.
It was a real, it was a real, it was a real culture shock for me, but also I was really thankful that I wasn't like them.
Yeah, that's good. We never have any TV. We have to make our neighbor have a TV. We have to make an appointment, to watch TV in the neighbor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. My dad said, can my kids watch the TV on Sunday or Saturday? There's a show that they like. Oh yeah, okay. So, but anytime you cannot go in there and watch TV.
Yeah.
You have to make an appointment. Jeez. Wow. These kids nowadays, man. What a what a
Well, and I can't see buying them a TV if they're supposed to be studying.
studying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hear all these college students for spring break in Florida? Well,
Yeah.
they have a curfew at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
They were complaining, said, well, we study for all these months and we came here,
They're
to
entitled. Yeah.
enjoy, right? Why can they make the curfew at 10 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock? So one of the kids said, I came from New York to go and enjoy myself, God.
They're entitled. You
Yeah,
know, they've been working at school and studying, so they're entitled to a vacation.
My general experience is that people who are entitled to vacation because they've worked so hard at school haven't worked very hard at school either.
Wow.
No, because they go to there to
I mean,
party. They go to school to party.
and of course, it costs money to go to these places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's paying their airline fares?
I mean, it's not like you're,
Parents.
driving somewhere with friends to stay with,
Yeah.
a girlfriend or a friend of a friend or whatever. You're
Yeah.
going to a party spot.
Oh, geez. Yep, they were complaining.
Yeah, of course they would. Yeah. So with that culture of entitlement, it's really difficult to,
And we have ourselves to blame. I mean, seriously, I do. Because we made it too easy for them. And I was there when we had to go up 3 flights of stairs with bookcase from IKEA and all his groceries and set it all up for him. And, but we weren't the ones that bought all the microwaves and stuff like that for the whole group. There were other people that had a little bit more money than we did.
right?
And then when they all had to move out, the ones that paid for the, microwave and stuff, they said, oh, whoever wants to take it can take it. Robert says, Mom, can we take the microwave? And I said, I didn't pay for it. And he says, but they're just giving it away. They're going to throw it out. And I said, well, okay, if they're going to throw it out, then I'll clean it for you.
Yeah.
But that's the mentality. And then we wonder where our kids are getting it from.
Right.
Yeah.
Once you're done with it, toss it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can always buy a new one and a
But you
better
can also
one.
clean it and it can be almost new again.
Yeah.
People don't think that way.
No.
It may take a little elbow grease, but for goodness sakes, it's not broken.
So he talks about individualism, the myth of individualism, the myth of unlimited progress, the myth of competition, the myth of consumerism, and the
Mhm,
myth of an unregulated market.
mhm.
And all of those are really pervasive. Consumerism, that we have to keep buying, and that once we're done with it, we can just throw it out and buy a new one.
That's how pollution started. Yeah.
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 And what's really amazing is that, a lot of things that can last a lifetime, just get thrown out. And a lot of things, that can last a long, long time
Yeah.
don't. Like, probably most of my clothes are somewhere between 20 and 30 years old.
Oh yeah, mine too.
They,
I have clothes from 1983. I'm still wearing it right now.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I still have some as well. I
yeah.
Yeah.
mean, um,
But
it's,
the fashion comes back anyway, like a circle, you know.
There's
well,
enough
as
way
I
to cut
look at it, whatever I wear defines the fashion. So, I don't need to be concerned
Yeah,
about that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
But
it comes back.
it's crazy to, think that you have to be,
Yeah,
in style when
yeah,
you have wearable clothes that are comfortable and nice.
Well, and what bothers me is things like
mhm,
technology, even though it's still working, the technology has changed so much that it becomes obsolete just by still having it.
Right.
I mean, we're forced into, you know, buying more.
Yeah. And then with phones, there's planned obsolescence. I mean, they wear down and they break.
Well, and plus the companies slow them down thinking that there's something wrong with them, but they're not.
Right.
There's
Right.
yeah,
nothing
There's
wrong
also
with
that.
it.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make me think that there's something wrong with it when it really is fine. And they hate the fact that I've still got mine.
Yeah.
But my kids are finally replacing it. But I don't want to, I won't throw it away. I mean, if somebody could use it, I'd rather see somebody use it.
Anything else about the chapter?
I was interested. Maybe next time, joy and peace.
I was just looking at that
Yeah,
chapter.
yeah,
Yeah,
the joy and peace.
222. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, page 159. I don't know if you have a chance to discuss that today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there is kind of a swing right now to kind of a minimalistic existence with some of the younger people. I don't,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that there is kind of a bend there.
They're yeah. The the sort of danger, I mean, it's so that kind of the less is more sort of mentality, or the principle that less is more, it's sort of really important that it be rooted in the notion of God, or in the notion, or at least of if not necessarily, of the Judeo-Christian God, of a God, as opposed to, because it can easily become, sort of one of these individualist things, like, so less is more is kind of, like those Survivor
Oh, yeah.
reality TV shows. And
Yeah,
there's a real, there are really people like that, like, who go off in the wilderness seeking their experience, and, trying to prove that they can survive. And that's, sort of very much, and kind of like in the tradition of, the American frontier stuff, where you're, the pioneering individual off on your own resources. And isn't that wonderful? So that just fuels individualism. Whereas less is more, the reason for less is that all of the more clutters your life and obscures what's really important, which is, primarily your connection to God, but also your connection to others around you, and also your connection to, the whole world around you, to animal life and plant life around you, to the beauty that God created, to, the possibility of interacting with animals, with, watching birds in the air, feeding the birds, seeing squirrels, feeding squirrels, all of those things are,
Creatures, yeah.
God's creatures. All of those relationships and all of those interactions enrich us in a way that, you know, our stuff doesn't. So that's and the notion of the notion of peace and joy. No, I always think about, I don't remember now where he wrote it, from St. Augustine, about how we go through life and we pant and we, worry and we're concerned and then we die. And so there's all of this stress and there's all of this struggle and there's all of this worry and we're dead. So it's all completely misplaced. It's all pointless.
I had that conversation with my mom the other day. I said, what's the point of worrying, Mom? Didn't you know that it's a sin? I said, it's not going to help anybody else. The worrying you do isn't going to help anybody else. So it's only going to make you worse.
Yeah.
And make you sick. And that's not any good.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so instead of that, there's God's peace, which is very real and really allows you to weather the storms.
And we need to go back to where was it? Praying before meals again, and which we still do. But I guess there's a lot of people that don't do that anymore. And just appreciate that, everything we've got is from God.
A lot of, and especially people typically don't do it in public. I suspect people who, even if they might do it at home, don't do it in public.
That's true. Yeah.
We do
But
it
also
in a restaurant.
Also, it's important not only to do it, but to mean it.
Yeah.
I mean, I still am always struck, when people will pray and thank God for the food and then not eat it.
Not eat it.
That's, I mean,
Yeah.
you might as well have, said, God, why can't you provide me something I want?
Yeah.
Why are you making me suffer like this? I mean,
Yeah.
we have to mean it. Prayer is useless if it doesn't come from the heart.
The problem is if you've never known what it's like to not have, then you don't appreciate it when you have it. A lot of people have nothing to compare it to.
Right.
So You know, if you grew up without it, then when you get it, you do appreciate it, and you know it's you know, you're lucky to have it. Whereas if you got it all the time and you never had to go without, then you don't realize how bad it is for those that don't have it. So you
Yeah,
don't appreciate it because you don't know any different.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We have to be thankful even for the air we breathe, you know, and for the roof over our heads. Look at all the people that are homeless, you know.
Right.
So
I mean, yeah, it's very true. We have a great deal to be grateful for,
mhm.
and none of it had to be, none of it is our entitlement.
No, not at all. Although, what is it? The city of Seattle is spending how much money in getting the housing and
The
but
housing, the homeless housing.
hoping that the government will help us out. And if it doesn't, I guess it's all on us, which is, I mean, we should be paying into it anyway to help out one another.
Well,
Yeah,
our brother's keeper, remember?
I know. So we should ask, you know, we should ask people around us, you know,
Yeah,
let's all
yeah.
start a fund. And we don't have to ask the government for the money. Unfortunately, there's too many people that would take advantage of those funds before they ever got to where they're going.
yeah, and even worse, the need is so great that
Oh, it's
the
terrible.
amount of funds needed are, I mean,
Huge.
it's hard to, yeah, and yeah, and then we have the staggering concentration of wealth in the hands of the
The
wealthiest.
wealthy, yeah.
Um, by divesting them of half of their money, which they don't, which they don't need anyway. We can make great strides forward, but that's not going to happen because they have the money.
They want power.
Well, there's
Along with
there's
it.
some there's some person like Bill Gates. He's a philanthropist now.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the mother had invested a building in UW. I forgot what the building is. And then Melinda, the wife, has her own. I don't know what the name of this charity. I forgot the name, but that's good because they're giving people
Bill and
money.
Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
That big
they
building downtown. Yeah.
yeah they give millions and to help even the COVID. They
yeah.
give
I mean that. Yeah,
millions.
and they've made
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
strides in they made a huge contribution in eliminating
Yeah.
diseases
Right.
through vaccines in the third
Yeah.
world.
Even in Africa, they go to Africa.
Yeah. Then besides, yeah, and then there's also did anyone read about like the Oso mudslide?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that
43,
was a whole
43.
Wow. Yeah.
And on the 11 o'clock news tonight, they're going to see if there's been anything done so that it wouldn't happen again.
Oh yeah. They don't act until something happens.
but
Well,
it was the dangers of building there were known.
Yeah.
oh,
And so there was this woman who worked in a real estate office who was an evangelical Christian who
Okay.
bought the land
Uh-huh.
and started building that complex. And there were all sorts of engineering warnings about how it was unstable, and
Mhm.
she kept pushing back, and she sort of wrote all of these letters complaining, and she was just a poor widow or whatever who was
Yeah.
investing her life savings, and now they're trying to ruin her, and so they backed down.
Yeah.
And the result is
Yeah.
33 lives
this:
lost.
she died and she left them all of her money to one of the televangelist ministries,
Yeah.
like Jim Baker or whomever.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, it's disgraceful because this whole thing was predictable.
Mm.
And and the worst thing is, that she was Christian, and it just represents Christianity gone bad.
Right.
Here's, the worship of mammon. Here I am, a poor struggling widow, and so we should, waive reason, and so that I make my money
Yeah.
and lives be damned, and then I'm going to leave it to some, sleazebag televangelist ministry
Yeah.
who
Oh,
are, going to make even worse use of it.
yeah.
She only killed the body, they killed the soul.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
oh, we're out of time.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Time goes by.
And we
But
didn't get very far.
That's okay. We'll get together next Monday.
So next Monday, and then I think maybe the following Monday, we'll have our last class and maybe discuss, what we can do about the um, about our role in or changing our role in caring for our common home, and also whether we should try to do something in terms of, say, reporting to the church as a whole, or doing something like that.
yeah. I mean, really act on it.
So
Yeah.
setting up a new
Yeah.
ministry?
Really do something about it. Yeah.
What?
Setting up a new ministry?
uh
Is that what
yeah,
you're
that's a
thinking?
possibility too.
Oh,
Yeah. But yeah. Our church started. We have a big compost, and they're recycling now. So it's a good start.
Hmm.
But we need more
Yeah, we need more.
to make people aware. Their awareness. The sleeping awareness. We need to wake up.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, that can be done. I mean, we still have at least some climate to not change deniers.
Yeah.
And, there's really no, I mean, you know, there's really no reason for that. There is no scientific debate.
Yeah.
It's just the notion that there is just a myth.
Hmm.
Um, and, there's stuff that we can do, and even small things at least are a beginning.
Right. Yeah.
Even small things matter. If you
Yeah.
recycle a bottle,
That
that's
helps. Yeah.
that's a difference of two bottles, right? One
well,
that's not
Yeah.
in the landfill and one that
Exactly.
gets
Yeah.
reused, and then that can become a bottle that becomes recycled.
well, and
And so that,
that's what we're doing already though, right? With our big blue garbage
Yeah.
container.
Yeah. We
yeah,
have.
although there's also the question of how many of how careful people are with their recycling, and whether they even do it at all.
They're not. They're not. Because when we do flowers, code, you will find things in the recycle that's not recyclable.
Yeah,
It's supposed to be in the compost bin or vice versa. And there's a compost bin that we use when we do flowers, and there's the recycle and there's a garbage. And sometimes you'll find something in the garbage that's supposed to be recyclable. So
right.
people don't really check.
Yeah,
Oh, this is this. They see this big thing. Oh,
right.
this,
That's
yeah,
yeah, that's a good point. After
yeah,
our the after cleanup, after the senior singles dinners, every now and then I take a look in the garbage,
yeah, yeah,
and there's always recycling or compost in there.
yeah.
Try
We'll
to
find that all the time.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So
we're doing our part as far as teachers go, because the little kids do know which bin everything goes in.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really
I
good.
think we need to really emphasize that
We
Yeah.
need to do it with our seniors.
children. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's, there's,
I like the fact that Laura put those boards up
Yeah.
showing that
yeah,
paper
that's
plates
really
go
good.
and
Yeah,
Yeah.
so do I.
compost, and
Yeah,
yeah, you can sort it yourself. You are capable.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the best thing for them to learn, when they're small. So you're planting the seed. So hopefully when they grow up, they take that with them.